I never thought the sound of someone whispering my name, Mama Loretta, would end up detonating my entire life. One syllable. That's all it took to break the world I had carefully stitched together. I had padded down the hall in bare feet, not even thinking. The hardwood was cool under my soles, a soft hush to each step. I figured Gerald had gotten up for a midnight snack. He was always doing that, sneaking spoonfuls of peanut butter straight from the jar. I didn't question it. It was our wedding night, after all. July 4th, 2024. Baton Rouge fireworks still echoing in the distance. But the closer I got to the kitchen, the more I realized something was off. The overhead light was off. Our joint honeymoon expense card, one of those sleek metal ones, sat untouched on the counter. No snack, no movement. Then I heard it. A low groan. My name, but not mine. Mama Loretta. I froze mid-step, my pulse hammered in my ears. The door to her guest room, just off the kitchen, was cracked open, light spilling out in a soft, traitorous line across the tile. I saw the silhouette of Gerald's shoulder. His back was arched toward her, and then I heard her voice, soft and scolding. Shh, she'll hear. For a full 5 seconds, I couldn't breathe. My legs wouldn't move. My body understood before my mind did. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't imagining things. I was watching them hand me the truth, in whispers and shadows. I stood there, one hand braced on the hallway wall, staring at that open door, catching every breath, every sick, muffled sound. The ceiling fan above me clicked steadily, mockingly. The expense card I'd activated for us. A $9,000 limit I'd offered to float while we waited on his back pay from the union job, glinted on the marble counter like a joke. I didn't make a sound. I didn't knock. I didn't scream. I turned, walked back to the guest bathroom and locked the door behind me. My hands shook so hard I missed the knob twice. My throat was tight with something between nausea and rage. Through the thin wall, I heard Loretta's laugh. Low, intimate, careless, as if I didn't exist. That's when it began. That was the minute my marriage ended. 1:12 a.m., July 5th. Right there on Laurel Street, barefoot and breathless. A wife turned witness. I locked myself in the bathroom and stared into the mirror, but the woman looking back wasn't me. Not really. Her eyes were too wide, her breath too shallow. Red mascara streaks ran down her cheeks like watercolor bleeding down a page. My wedding makeup, Charlotte Tilbury, $112 full glam kit, melted off like war paint in the wrong battle. I couldn't hear every word through the thin Airbnb wall, but their laughter carried, muffled and intimate. No shame. Just her humming some song, and him saying something low I couldn't catch. The way people talk when they think they're the only ones awake. I sat on the closed toilet lid and wrapped my arms around my waist, like I could keep myself from falling apart. I could still feel the weight of the white dress I had worn hours earlier. The smooth satin. The fitted bodice. I had changed out of it after the fireworks, folded it neatly in the garment bag hanging in the closet. I hadn't cried then. I'd been happy, tired, married. I blinked at the version of myself in that mirror, still in the silk robe with Mrs. Jefferson embroidered in gold thread. I'd bought it on Etsy, spelled it out myself. I'd merged our checking accounts 2 weeks before, thinking it would make travel easier, thinking it made me a wife. Now all I could think about was that $2,200 I had transferred from my business account into our joint one for honeymoon flexibility. Gerald said he didn't want to feel constricted while we were starting our life. I'd even floated the Airbnb reservation. That was me, Rhea, the competent one, always preparing. I was 37 years old, a licensed therapist with my own practice on Government Street. I'd counseled people through infidelity, loss, grief, betrayal. Hell, I'd walked Loretta through her mourning when her second husband died last fall. She had cried into tissues I handed her. She had called me safe, said I felt like the daughter she never had. That was before she slept with mine. I sat in that bathroom, shaking, My phone screen blinked on the counter. Notifications still rolling in. Congratulations. Fireworks emojis. Wedding hashtags. A photo of me and Gerald on the courthouse steps, smiling like idiots. I didn't open them. I didn't need reminders of who I was supposed to be. I knew exactly who I was. I was the fool behind the door, the woman they didn't bother to lie to. And God help them, I was still listening. 3 months earlier, I had sat in my office with the door cracked open, humming Sam Cooke under my breath, sipping cold brew between clients. That space, Suite 204 on the second floor of the Mid-City Commons building, had become my sanctuary. Cream walls, fiddle-leaf fig in the corner, 2 blue armchairs, and 1 wide desk I'd assembled myself from a flat-pack box. My practice was stable. 32 weekly clients. Waitlist booked out 6 weeks. I took home $86,000 a year, and I'd built a $42,000 cushion in my business savings. Enough to sleep at night. Enough to breathe. That was before Gerald called my schedule cold and said I was living like a robot. "You work too much," he told me once, while we sat in my living room eating jambalaya I'd made from scratch. "You need softness, somebody to hold you." I had rolled my eyes and laughed. But secretly, I liked the way he said it. He had a gentleness about him back then. Always rubbing the back of my neck, always saying how my voice made him feel grounded, like I steadied him. Loretta had first come to me for grief counseling in January. She'd been listless, a little dramatic, but grieving honest. Said she couldn't sleep, that her chest ached at night. "I just don't want to die alone," she'd whispered, fingers twisting that big gold locket she always wore. I believed her. She talked about her son, Gerald, like he was her second heartbeat, said he was good with his hands, and never met a stranger. When she brought him to the church group for grief support, I didn't think anything of it. Shiloh Community Church had a big enough fellowship hall for new faces. The 3rd session, Gerald showed up with a hot container of seafood gumbo for me. Said it was Mama's recipe, shrimp, okra, crab legs, heavy on the roux. I'd been too surprised to refuse. The whole group noticed how charming he was, how quickly Loretta lit up around him. Now I know that glow wasn't grief-lifting. It was something else entirely. That spring, I thought I had built a life out of purpose, serving people, showing up, loving wisely. I fed myself with routines, therapy notes, and chamomile tea after evening clients. I thought I was safe. Turns out I was just the next Mark. And all the softness Gerald said he offered? That was never for me. It was hers. Always hers. I met Gerald on a Tuesday night under church lights. The Shiloh Community Church gym buzzed with folding chairs and grief-weighted silences. Loretta had joined the weekly group after her second husband passed in December. She was consistent. Always early, always with a thermos of chicory coffee. Always the loudest amen when someone cried. The night she brought Gerald, I was leading a session on complicated grief, how loss sometimes shapeshifts. He slipped in late and quiet, sat behind her with his arms folded, ball cap low. She waved him forward, patted the seat beside her. "That's my baby," she said, to the whole room, like it was a prayer. He smiled at me when I passed out worksheets. Deep dimples. A smile that made people lean in. When I asked if he wanted to share, he shook his head no, but thanked me by name. "Appreciate what you're doing here, Ms. Raya." Not doctor, not counselor, just Raya. Like he already knew me. That night, after most had left, he helped stack chairs. I stayed back to lock up and asked him how he was holding up. "She's been struggling," he said, nodding toward Loretta. "I just wanted to be here, you know. Make sure she felt seen." Seen. That word, God, it always hooked me. I'd spent most of my life making other people feel seen. I didn't realize how hungry I was to hear it spoken back. By the 3rd session he attended, he brought gumbo. "Mama said you'd appreciate real food," he grinned. "You look like you run on granola and willpower." I didn't laugh, but I smiled. I accepted the gumbo. Loretta watched us like a cat watching two mice flirt. She never interfered, just grinned with that knowing look women wear when they're laying a trap and calling it matchmaking. There was no protocol against connecting outside group. We weren't in formal therapy. Still, I hesitated when he asked if he could take me to lunch sometime. Nothing formal, he said. Just want to say thanks. You've helped my mama. I didn't say yes that day, but 2 weeks later, I met him at a little cafe off Government. Crawfish, étouffée, sweet tea, nothing heavy. He listened, asked good questions, said I was wiser than most, even though I was younger than him by 4 years. What I didn't see, what I didn't want to see, was the way Loretta smiled when I told her we'd gone out. The way she stopped pretending to grieve. The trap had already closed around me, and I had thanked them for it. The morning after the wedding night, I sat at the Airbnb kitchen table and started printing receipts. I didn't cry, I couldn't. Something in me had snapped too cleanly to bleed. I needed facts, numbers, proof of my own foolishness. I opened Venmo, scrolled back. March 18th, $1,240, studio deposit. Promise I'll pay you back Friday. April 7th, $280, groceries, plus meds. Thanks, babe. You're a lifesaver. May 4th, $3,800, truck repair. Mechanics don't wait. You're amazing. I pulled bank statements, matched them to texts. I opened the Notes app and started my own list. Not a diary, a ledger. March to July. Rent on his old studio, 4 months at $980 equals $3,920. Groceries, conservative estimate, $150 per week for 14 weeks equals $2,100. Truck repair, $3,800. His dental work, $780. Emergency vet visit for his dog, $1,200. Said he'd reimburse me soon. Said once he got that back pay from the sheet metal union, he'd spoil me like I deserved. But the back pay never came. Or maybe it did and just detoured into Loretta's bank account. The night before the wedding, I'd paid off the Airbnb balance on our Capital One, a honeymoon joint card I'd opened in my name with his authorized user access. It wasn't that I expected repayment, not really. I just expected truth. I expected loyalty. I expected him to be the man I believed in. Instead, I was the soft place he landed, the account he pulled from, the woman he used as a cushion while he curled up with his mother behind a half-shut door. At 11:17 a.m. that morning, he texted, "You okay, babe? Thought you were just sleeping in, Mama making eggs, come eat. Come eat." As if my appetite hadn't just been annihilated. As if the taste in my mouth wasn't betrayal and bile. I took a photo of the receipts spread out on the Airbnb table. My phone buzzed with another message. "You're quiet this morning. Don't go into therapist mode on me." I know that look. He had no idea what look I wore now. It wasn't therapist, it wasn't lover, it wasn't wife, it was witness, an accountant. And the clock had just started ticking. May 2nd, 2024. The earrings were small, cheap gold hoops with rhinestones chipped at the edge. Nothing I'd ever wear. I found them on the sink edge, just sitting there like they belonged. I remember holding them between my fingers, cold and faintly greasy, thinking maybe they were mine. Maybe I'd forgotten. Maybe I was tired. But no, I knew my jewelry. I kept it in velvet-lined drawers, cleaned every few weeks like clockwork. These weren't mine. Gerald was in the living room watching Snowfall reruns when I asked. "You recognize these?" I said, dangling them between 2 fingers like a test I didn't want graded. He glanced up, grinned. "Oh, those are Mama's. She's scatterbrained as hell. Probably left 'em after her shower." I stood there a beat too long. "When was she in our bathroom?" "She took a bath while you were working late last week," he said, eyes already back on the TV. Her back was acting up. He reached for the remote, flipping the volume up. "Let it go, babe. You know how she is." That was the moment. I remember it now in crisp detail. How the air felt too still. How the TV flickered over his face like a mask. I walked to the bedroom, took a photo of the earrings on the marble counter, then dropped them into the back of my nightstand drawer. I told myself I was being petty. I told myself it didn't mean anything. But that same week, I found a thick envelope misdelivered in our mail slot. Medicare enrollment documents. Addressed to Loretta Jefferson. My address. I texted her a photo of the envelope. She replied, "Oh, honey, must have been a mix-up. I'll grab it next time I'm over." And just like that, it was fine. Or rather, I made it fine. I let it slide. Because I didn't want to seem possessive. Because Gerald had been warm that week. Attentive. Sweet. Because I had begun to think of him as my future, not a guest in my condo. But the earrings stayed in that drawer. And the Medicare forms never got picked up. And that night, when I went to brush my teeth, I stood over the sink a long time staring at my reflection and wondering if I'd just seen the first hairline crack. Turns out, it wasn't a crack. It was the first splinter in the dam. And Loretta had already packed a hammer. June 10th, the day Gerald moved in, a little early to help with wedding stress. That's what he called it. Said the studio was loud and cramped, said it didn't feel aligned with his growth. He used words like energy, harmony, and phase of our journey, like he was pitching a soul merger, not crashing at my place rent-free. I didn't argue. The wedding was 3 weeks out. Vendors, fittings, final deposit to the DJ. I told myself it made sense. What didn't make sense was Loretta showing up with 2 weekend bags and a heating pad. Just till my sciatica cools down, she smiled, rubbing her back theatrically. And I like your tub better than mine, sugar. My place don't get hot water right. I froze. Gerald kissed her cheek and brought in her bags like this had been discussed. Like it was normal. I didn't want to make a scene, not over something that might pass. So I swallowed it. She settled into the guest room like she owned it. Wore my robe. Left her tea mug wherever she sat. Blasted old Anita Baker albums like it was her living room. Then, one Sunday, I came home from a work trip to Dallas, a weekend seminar on burnout recovery, and found 2 wine glasses in the sink. Only 2, both red-stained, one with lipstick. Loretta swore she hadn't touched wine in years, said it clashed with her blood pressure meds. Gerald shrugged. Probably from earlier in the week, babe. I've been cleaning as I go. But I knew my sink. I knew what lived and died in it. Those glasses were fresh. I didn't ask who he'd drunk with. Didn't ask if Loretta's sciatica had miraculously healed enough for Merlot and late-night jazz. I just wiped the counters and kept quiet. A week later, I got a call from Shay, my realtor. She was checking in about the mortgage, said she'd flagged my file for a refi offer, but noticed no secondary signer listed yet. "You want to add Gerald now that y'all are getting hitched?" she asked. I hesitated. "No," I said. "Not yet." "Good," Shay said, with that candor only women past 40 seem to own. "Keep that name off your deed till you've seen how he handles pressure." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan and listening through the thin wall till Loretta laughed at something Gerald said in the kitchen. I turned my phone face down. The silence felt like a test, and I already knew I was failing it. June 22nd. The day Loretta brought her laptop to the dining table and accidentally opened her Airbnb host profile with my condo listed in draft mode. I was halfway through slicing strawberries for brunch when I saw it. My address, my square footage, even a little blurb she'd written. Charming 2BR in Crestworth, updated kitchen, quiet neighbors, ideal for travel nurses and couples. I didn't say anything right away, just stared. My coffee went cold in my hand. "Loretta," I said finally, "why is my condo showing up on your Airbnb?" She glanced up from her screen, completely unfazed. "Oh, I was just playing around, baby. I saw all that space and thought we could get you some passive income. You know, share the blessing." "By renting out my home?" Gerald chimed in from the couch without even looking up. "She means the guest room, babe. Just thinking long term. We could list it when we're traveling." We. I set the knife down, wiped my hands, walked to my office. 15 minutes later, I was on Zoom with Ania, my accountant. I shared my screen. See this? My address. In someone else's profile. Ania leaned forward. Who's Loretta again? Gerald's mother. Ania blinked. You've got her running projections off your primary residence? No. She's doing it on her own. Ania's fingers tapped the desk. Well, this, she pointed to the downloaded IRS form on the desktop, is a draft 8,825. That's a tax schedule for rental property income. Who's filling this out? I hadn't noticed it. She had used my laptop. Left the file on my desktop like she thought I wouldn't understand it. Or maybe she thought I wouldn't look. Loretta was using my device. I didn't give her permission to start anything formal. Ania was quiet for a beat. You need to secure your accounts. Now. Log out of everything. New passwords. And lock down any apps connected to payment methods. That night, Gerald made gumbo. Said he was celebrating us, almost being on the other side of wedding madness. I smiled weakly and drank a glass of wine I didn't taste. After dinner, while he and Loretta laughed at reruns, I sat on the edge of the bed and changed every password I had, starting with my email, then my banking, then the security system. Loretta still hadn't asked before using my laptop, and Gerald still hadn't offered to pay the utility bill he'd cover next time. The air was thick with pretend. But my trust? That was thinning by the minute. June 30th, the heat sat heavy on Baton Rouge like a dare. I stood on the back patio with my hands clenched behind me, trying to keep my voice even. I'd asked them both to meet me outside. No TV, no walls, no ability to pretend they didn't hear me. Gerald came out first, shirtless, smiling like nothing was wrong. Loretta followed with a lemonade and that same worn silk scarf she always wore when she wanted to look dignified. I need to say something, I started, my hand shaking. Gerald grinned. You want to practice your vows again, babe? Loretta chuckled. She got that serious tone. You sound like you about to give us homework. I don't appreciate being listed on a rental profile I didn't approve, I said. They blinked. Then Gerald looked at his mother. She gave a tight-lipped shrug. I was just brainstorming, she said lightly, trying to help you build some income. You're so task-focused. I figured you could use the vision. And you used my laptop. I told you I was just looking. I didn't publish anything. You actin' like I stole your bank codes. Gerald stepped in, voice dropping into that faux soothing register I'd come to hate. You're spiraling, babe. You need therapy, not suspicion. That word therapy burned hotter than the sun baking the patio bricks. You don't get to weaponize my profession against me, I said, teeth clenched. Come on now, Loretta said, rolling her eyes. You're being dramatic. We're family. We're trying to help. No, I said. You're trying to use me. There's a difference. Silence. Then Gerald exhaled sharply. All right, let's table all that. Can we just focus on the wedding? It's a big week. Don't bring bad energy into it. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. We were thinking we didn't spend all the wedding budget. You were generous. Maybe we can reallocate the leftover funds? I unfolded it. A spreadsheet. Loretta had itemized categories: honeymoon fund, starter investment, emergency buffer for Mama. The audacity of her calling herself that. I already gave y'all $6,800, I said. For deposits, catering, the band. What exactly is left over? Well, Gerald said, rubbing his neck. If you count the cash gifts from family. That's not left over. That's not mine to reallocate. Loretta sucked her teeth. Jealousy's a bitter perfume, baby. I stared at her. I'm not jealous, I said. I'm done pretending not to notice. But, even then, I didn't leave. I didn't rage. I didn't pack my bag. I walked back inside, quietly, like someone still hoping they were wrong. And that hope, that last flicker of it, was the biggest lie I'd told myself. It was July 5th, almost midnight, 23 hours after I heard my husband whisper his mother's name through a half-closed door. 23 hours of breathing and betrayal and pretending it was just air. I stood again in the Airbnb hallway, barefoot, barely blinking. The moonlight cut soft across the wood floors. I hadn't spoken to either of them all day. I'd gone out early, coffee with Shay, a walk through Perkins Row, just to avoid the staleness of their presence. But I knew they'd slip up again. So I waited, sat in silence on the edge of the bed, my phone charging beside me. I opened the voice memo app and let my thumb hover. At 11:49 p.m., I crept into the hallway. The light under Loretta's door was on. I stood still, pressed record, and waited. At first, just murmurs. Then her voice, close and thick. "She's not gonna do anything. This is our time. Let her sleep." Then Gerald. "We deserve something easy for once." Then a pause, then laughter, then the sound of something, maybe fabric, moving. I stepped back, careful not to let the floor creak, and retreated to the bathroom. I sat on the closed toilet lid, just like I had 2 nights before. This time, I wasn't hollow. This time, I burned. The audio was just under 2 minutes. When it ended, I didn't listen again. I didn't need to. The next tab I opened was the Louisiana State Marriage License lookup. Public record. No license filed. I typed his full name. Then mine. Then refreshed. Nothing. The notary had given us the documents, but he had volunteered to mail them in, said he'd handle it while I packed for the trip. I believed him. Now I knew. The wedding was real enough for pictures, for congratulations, for the $6,800 I fronted, but not for the state. We weren't legally married. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Same robe, same tired eyes, but the softness was gone. My voice, when I spoke aloud, to no one, just the bathroom wall, was colder than I'd ever heard. Okay, just that. Not a threat, not a plan, just recognition. I sent the audio file to my encrypted cloud, tagged it July 5th proof. Then I texted Carla, my notary friend. "Can I ask you something off the record?" She replied in 2 minutes flat. "Always." I told her everything. She didn't gasp or ask why I stayed. She just replied, "You're clear. No license, no legal tie. And now you've got proof." That night I didn't cry. I drafted a list instead, and at the top, in all caps, I wrote, "Do not let them tell you what you saw." July 6th, just before noon, I walked into the Chase branch on Bluebonnet Boulevard. The air conditioning hit like a wall of ice. I welcomed it. I wore a white linen dress, simple but clean, and flats that made no sound on the tile. I had a tote bag on my shoulder with everything I needed, my ID, business account numbers, and a small folder labeled Emergency Actions. Janelle, my banker, was on shift. We'd known each other since I opened my first business account 6 years ago. She raised an eyebrow when she saw me. "Wedding week, right?" I nodded, tight-lipped. "I need to lock down some things." She led me to her office without another word. Inside, I handed over my Chase business debit card. His copy was still active. "I want this revoked. Immediate. He's been charging off script." Janelle tapped quickly at her keyboard. "When was the last time you authorized use?" "June 28th. The catering deposit." She clicked twice. "He's run $4,400 since then, mostly Zelle transfers. Some Venmo pass-throughs. Want those blocked too?" "Yes. And close the Venmo link. I'll reroute client payments manually." She turned the screen toward me. "You want to remove him as an authorized user entirely? Gone. Like he never existed?" A small smile crept into her lips. "Done." She printed the revocation slip, slid it to me to sign. I did, hands steady. I'd been shaking just 2 days ago, but not now. Now I was clean. My phone buzzed twice while I was sitting there. I didn't check it until I was back in my car. "Gerald, hey, your card's not working. Did you forget to approve something?" Gerald again. "Raya, come on now. If this is about the vibes lately, let's talk. Don't make it weird." Then a third came in live. "So it's war now?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email and sent Carla the digital proof of revocation. Step 1 complete. I wrote. I sat in the parking lot for 5 full minutes, watching people walk in and out of the bank. Men in suits, moms with toddlers, teenagers depositing birthday cash. I wasn't any of them. I was the woman who had just shut the financial floodgate. Gerald had tried to build a kingdom out of my kindness. And now? Now he was cut off. No cards, no transfers, no access. It wasn't vengeance. It was hygiene. July 7th. FedEx Kinko's, Essen Lane. I walked in with a flash drive, 2 notebooks, a half-dead phone, and one intention: build a paper wall they couldn't gaslight through. The young guy behind the counter, Braxton, his name tag said, looked up from his energy drink. Need printing? No, I said. I need binding. He led me to the self-service station and showed me how to collate everything. I nodded, thanked him, and got to work. 44 pages, printed and punched. Venmo logs cross-referenced with text timestamps. Screenshots of Loretta's Airbnb draft listing. Draft IRS Form 8825 she left on my laptop. Transaction histories showing money in, money out. His name never once on the paying end. A photo of the gold earrings she left in my sync audio transcript of the July 5th recording. This is our time. And in the front pocket, a flash drive with everything digitized and time-stamped. On the cover, in bold, timeline of breach, Jefferson/Price. I slipped the binder into a black leather portfolio. Clean. No emotion, no embellishment, just truth. Outside, the heat rolled like breath off the pavement. I sat in my car, turned on the AC, and opened my email. A reply from Boudreaux Legal Services. Subject: certified. Ms. Price. Documents received and scanned. Your petition to revoke Loretta Jefferson's power of attorney request has been drafted per your outline and awaits co-signature. The binder is admissible under civil fraud guidelines. Next step: delivery of formal notice. M. Boudreaux Loretta had tried to submit a POA form back in May. Said it was just in case. She'd left it half complete in my kitchen drawer under the takeout menus. At the time, I'd laughed it off. Thought she was playing helpful matriarch. Now I saw it clear. They weren't improvising. They had a plan, one that included my money, my home, and my erasure. But they hadn't planned for documentation. For someone who tracks patterns for a living, who listens for inconsistencies and follows receipts like breadcrumbs. Back at home, I placed the binder in the fireproof lockbox, where I used to keep old tax returns and family photos. Then I opened my laptop and made a duplicate copy for the cloud. At 7:18 p.m., an email from Loretta came through. Hope you're feeling clearer, sweetheart. We were thinking of making jambalaya tomorrow. Mama's recipe. You should eat. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied with a single attachment. The binder cover. Timeline of breach. Jefferson/Price. No message. No explanation. Let the title speak. Let the silence answer. July 8th. Early evening. I was on Shay's porch, sipping iced tea and watching cicadas fling themselves at the bug light like it was God. I'm not crazy, am I? I asked. Shay didn't answer right away. She set her glass down slow, like she needed both hands to choose her words. Girl, she said finally, you've been too patient. She leaned forward, elbow on her knee. You know how many women would have burned the whole damn condo down at part 3 of that mess? We both laughed, but it cracked a little on the edges. I needed that laugh like a lung needs a window. I had texted her first, then Carla, then finally, Pastor Denise. I didn't send them the whole binder, just the broad strokes. Loretta. Gerald. The wedding that wasn't legal. The money they siphoned while calling it love. Each one responded within the hour. Carla. I'm ready to notarize whatever you need. You are not alone. Shay. Keep every screenshot. They don't get to play slick and walk away clean. And Pastor Denise? She called me. No hesitation. Child, she said, her voice low and rooted. You are not the first woman to be used and called crazy for noticing. You will not be the last, but I will stand with you. This church? We back truth. That night on Shay's porch, the mosquitoes were wild, the air thick, and I felt something settle in me. Not peace, but a readiness. We were planning. I showed them Gerald's latest post, captioned over a black and white photo of a man praying, palms open. Please pray for people who think betrayal looks like boundaries. Some of us are just trying to heal. Dove. 33 likes. All his cousins. One of Loretta's sisters. I screenshotted it. Saved it under a folder named Performative Concern. Looks like he's building a defense, Carla had texted. I'm building a case, I replied. That same night, I drafted the cease and desist letter for defamation. Just a draft. No send button yet. But it felt good to write the words. Cease public mischaracterization. All claims are archived. Shay leaned back in her rocker and said, You realize you've already won, right? No, I said. Winning is them facing consequence. And I meant it. I wasn't interested in pity, apologies, or last-minute backpedals. I wanted the mirror held up. I wanted them to see themselves in full light. And most of all, I wanted witnesses. July 9th, 2024, 11:13 a.m. sharp. I stood outside the Motel 6 on Airline Highway, envelope in hand, sun burning the back of my neck like judgment. The manager, a young man with a clipboard and sleepy eyes, looked me over twice. You sure you want to serve him here? Yes, I said. This is the address on file. He handed me a form to sign for delivery confirmation. Room 212, Ms. Jefferson and Mr. Price. I watched him tuck the envelope under the door, flat, unmistakable, like the weight of truth itself. Inside that envelope, formal notice of revocation of cohabitant rights, cease and desist draft, flagged for defamation, petitions prepared for small claims if property wasn't returned, an addendum, vacate immediately or face civil fraud. It was notarized. Carla had co-signed it. Boudreaux Legal had confirmed delivery counted as served notice under Louisiana tenant law due to implied residency without lease. I didn't knock. I didn't wait for them to open the door and spit their spin. I took a photo of the delivery, sent it to myself, then walked back to my car, heels clicking with the kind of rhythm only a clean conscience gives. At 11:26 a.m., I received a reply to my earlier email from Gerald. You're making a mistake you can't undo. No punctuation, just that string of words like a spell he hoped still had power. I didn't respond. Instead, I updated the file folder name from Proof to Judgment Path Executed. On the drive home, I passed the florist where we'd picked out the wedding bouquet. Peonies, cream and rust-colored. The window display still showed a sample of July packages. I didn't look away. I just rolled my window up and let the silence keep me company. That afternoon, I called my building manager, told him Loretta and Gerald were not authorized guests, that no one but me should be allowed into the Crestworth condo going forward. He made a note, sent a confirmation email. I changed the pin on my front door, reprogrammed the gate code, replaced the guest room linens and burned the pillowcases. I moved in slow, deliberate circles like a woman clearing sacred space, because that's what it was, my space. And now? Now it was protected. Not by kindness, by law. Sunday, July 14th, 1:18 p.m., Shiloh Community Church Fellowship potluck. Plastic tablecloths, baked mac and cheese sweating in foil pans, punch bowls sweating under a thin layer of ice, and them, Loretta and Gerald, standing by the deviled eggs like they'd just come in from a stroll, not from the Motel 6 where I'd served them 4 days earlier. Loretta wore white, not just a blouse, white head to toe, linen pants, gold sandals, a shawl draped like sermon fabric. Her face said grieving matriarch. Her eyes? Calculation. Gerald had on a pressed shirt and a smile that didn't reach. I was holding a paper plate when I saw them. My binder was tucked in my bag under the table. Flash drive queued. I hadn't planned to act here. Not yet. But they showed up with theater in their eyes. Loretta grabbed the mic during announcement time. Nobody gave it to her. She took it, slid in after the last announcement, and said, "If y'all don't mind, I'd like to ask for some prayer." A hush fell. She gripped the mic like it owed her something. "My son and we've been attacked by confusion. The devil moves through division, y'all. And sometimes it even comes from family." The room held still. Then she looked at me. "She's unstable," she said, voice quivering. "This ain't fair. I tried to help. I loved her like my own." Someone gasped. Gerald nodded solemnly beside her, palms together like a man preparing for communion. And that's when she did it. She reached into her purse and flung my binder across the food table. Pages scattered over the potato salad. Spiral binding cracked. It landed with a slap that echoed. "She's stalking us, printing lies." Gerald pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and waved it high. "Our joint deed draft," he shouted. "We were building a life." Pastor Denise didn't hesitate. She unplugged the mic with one hand and stepped between us like Moses parting a foolish sea. "That's enough," she said calmly. "Y'all came into God's house to perform a tantrum. Not today." The room buzzed. A child started crying. Someone whispered, "What is happening?" I stepped forward, picked up my binder page by page. My hands were steady. "I didn't bring this to the church," I said loud enough for the back row. "They did." Loretta's hand shook as she grabbed a napkin and dabbed invisible tears. Gerald just glared, as if his scowl could change what had already been seen. But it was too late. They'd made it public. And now? Now it was my turn. 1:24 p.m., potluck still half-filled with murmuring and side eyes. I walked to the front of the fellowship gym, binder back in hand, flash drive clenched between my fingers. "I wasn't going to speak," I said, "but now that they have, I'll tell the truth." Gerald hissed from behind me, "Don't you dare." I didn't look at him. I just turned to Pastor Denise, who stood at the side of the projector cart. "May I?" She nodded once. "Let it show." Janelle from choir was already at the laptop. She took the flash drive, plugged it in, and without a word, cued the first slide. Slide 1. A screenshot of Gerald texting me June 3rd. "Just float me $300 till Friday. Promise it's the last time." The crowd made a collective sound, half gasp, half recognition. Slide 2. Venmo log with matching $300 transfer. Slide 3. Airbnb draft listing with my address in Loretta's profile. Slide 4. IRS form 8825 found on my laptop. None of these were accidents, I said. They were setting me up to be both the bank and the fool. Loretta crossed her arms. Gerald stepped forward. Pastor Denise held up a palm. "She's talking. You had your turn." Slide 5. Audio transcript. "This is our time." Slide 6. Screenshot of marriage license lookup. No record found. I turned to the congregation, who had fallen fully silent. "We were never legally married," I said. "He told me he mailed the paperwork. He didn't." The screen faded to black for one breath before Janelle clicked again. Slide 7. Affidavit from Carla, Notary Public, confirming no filing, no legal marriage, no certification. Gasps. A few hands to mouths. One of Gerald's cousins whispered, "Lord Jesus." Then I raised the final slide. Slide 8. Affidavit of non-consummation, signed and notarized, stamped July 6th. I gave myself a chance to walk away with dignity, I said. But they followed me into this space, so now the truth will walk too. Loretta collapsed into a folding chair, muttering, "This ain't right." She twisted everything. Gerald's jaw flexed, but his hands were still. He wasn't yelling now. Janelle closed the file and ejected the flash drive. The screen went dark. Pastor Denise stepped forward. "This isn't gossip. This is evidence. And this church backs truth. Full stop." Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. Because silence like that? That's not awkwardness. That's a verdict. 1:35 p.m. The projector screen had gone black, but the silence in the fellowship hall hadn't lifted. It had deepened. I stepped back, binder still in my hands. Janelle handed me the flash drive with quiet reverence, like it was a relic that had survived fire. "I need to play one thing," I said. "And then I'm done." Gerald whispered behind me, "Don't." I pressed play anyway. The speaker crackled for half a breath, then Loretta's voice came through, syrupy and low. "She's not gonna do anything. This is our time. Let her sleep." Then Gerald, "We deserve something easy for once." A rustle, a laugh, then silence. Then the recording ended. Loretta's hand flew to her chest, like she might faint, but no one moved to catch her. Gerald muttered a curse, stormed toward the gym doors, and shoved them open so hard they banged. The noise startled a baby near the juice table. But nobody followed him, not even Loretta. She sat stiff, jaw tight, eyes unfocused, like a woman realizing the walls had closed in and there was no longer a window to climb through. I walked to the center table where the punch bowl sat, still sweating, set the binder down in front of Pastor Denise, opened to the Chase transaction revocations. My new affidavit of cohabitation annulment, audio file transcript, copies of every legal doc. "This is for record," I said. "If they try to spin it again." She looked at the pages without flinching. "Understood." Someone at the far end of the room said softly, "Lord, have mercy." But no one challenged me. No one reached for the mic. No one dared. Then Pastor Denise faced the crowd, hand resting gently on the binder like it was scripture. "Let this be clear," she said. "A lie walked in here in white linen. But the truth stood up, showed its receipts, and did not run." Heads nodded. Chairs creaked. I exhaled, for the first time in days, and finally felt my lungs fill all the way up. Before I left, Boudreaux Legal pinged my phone. "Chase fraud case officially opened. Cohabitation annulment underway. You're covered." I sent that screenshot to Carla, Shay, and Pastor Denise. 3 words beneath it. "We're almost home." Outside, the sky had shifted. Sun broke clean through the clouds. I walked to my car like a woman unsilenced. Not triumphant. Not smug. Just free. July 15th, 2024. Sunrise, golden and quiet over Crestworth. I stood at my condo door barefoot again, but not broken this time. Just waiting for the locksmith. He arrived at 6:43 a.m., yawning behind a travel mug of gas station coffee. "Changing the front deadbolt and the keypad?" he asked, glancing at the paper I handed him. "Yes, and the spare on the back patio. No duplicates allowed." He nodded and got to work. Each clink of the metal against metal felt like a hymn. Every old screw that hit the ground sounded like closure. Inside, the air was different. Still, but not heavy. The kind of stillness that comes after a storm, when the world holds its breath to see what you'll do next. I took Gerald's old key card, still tucked inside the dish by the door, and dropped it into the shredder. It sputtered a bit, then ate it whole. The last trace of access. Gone. I walked through each room slowly, touching only what was mine. The lavender throw I'd bought from the farmer's market. The framed photo of my parents in Mississippi. The copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God. I'd reread every spring. Nothing of them remained. No wine glasses, no lotion bottles, no scarves draped like ownership. Just me. Just home. At 7:18 a.m., Gerald's final voicemail came in. One long, strangled breath before the words, "You ruined us." I didn't delete it. I saved it, labeled "Final Attempt," in case. I'd learned to keep everything. By 8:04, legal aid emailed me confirmation. Annulment petition filed and marked urgent. Sole property ownership reaffirmed. No contest expected. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then opened my bottom desk drawer, took out the envelope I'd once planned to use for our honeymoon itinerary, back when I thought we were planning a life. I repurposed it, slipped the new deed copy and locksmith receipt inside, labeled it with a Sharpie, "After," and slid it into the fireproof box. That was it. Not vengeance, not victory laps. Just a house, locked. A name, removed. A key, mine alone. I stood on the balcony as the sun climbed higher, warming the iron rail and the tops of my bare feet. Baton Rouge hummed to life below me, but I didn't rush. Let the world spin. I was still. And for the first time in months, nothing in me flinched.